Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for tuning in once again. My name is Temi Ajayi, and I've got my prof with me today, Professor Mimi Watts. I don't know which part of the world she is. Yesterday, she was in Abuja. The day
I'm
before, she was
in,
in the UK. Where are you now, Prof?
I am in Benin in Nigeria.
Oh,
So
you're still in Nigeria.
I am in Nigeria at the moment, and I'll be in the UK in the next 48 hours or so.
Oh
Then to
my
Australia
God.
next week.
Benin people, where are you, Nigerian people? You got a powerful lady there in Benin. Amazing. Wow.
Absolutely. I've visited some interesting studios, galleries, and of course the historical wall. You see the moats at the moment, and it just gives you a really good understanding of the African empires prior to the destruction by colonizers and settlers. So yeah, I've been to Nigeria several times, but
I
it's
know.
really good to visit different parts of the country, but really understand the history of the continent from the local people. But really, seeing is believing sometimes. And when you hear about the Great Wall of China, Benin City had a wall that was far much longer and stretched wider than the Great Wall of China, and today the most are there as evidence. And the infrastructure overall is interesting, depending how you look at it. And yeah, it's it's one of those. And yeah, and this is my Africa.
Wow. I know you've always been passionate about Africa, but I think this time you are a bit restless about this issue that is affecting Africa. Like it's really big on you, you know, these days. Wow.
Absolutely. I guess I've been teaching policy to master students for the last 5 years. And you cannot teach policy without being an advocate, but also without being a practitioner. And for me,
Yeah.
when I teach policy and governance, leadership, etc., one of the courses I also teach is leadership. But then leadership is about applying it, but also being a practical leader rather than a theoretical leader.
Right.
And for me, that transcends so many spaces. And I think having the opportunity to travel to different places professionally provides a very good platform to help educate people as well in other spaces using the agency, but also the platforms that I have been opportune to be given. And my visit to the US, as you know, last week or the week before, I was in the US for the forum, the Permanent Forum of People of African Descent, the United Nations. And that was focusing on advocacy, but also really looking at the history of colonization. And today we have neo-colonialism, but really bringing leaders and experts from across the globe, from
Mm.
the continents, from the African continent, from the Asia Pacific region. I think from the Asia Pacific region, we may have been maybe three people or so from the Asia Pacific region. And I think it provided an opportunity to listen, but also to share and participate and share insights into what is really happening, understand the history of why we are where we are today. And I've done some write-ups on LinkedIn for people who don't know me or don't follow my page. Please go on LinkedIn. I'm not on Facebook and other platforms, but LinkedIn is the platform that I share the education messages. And yeah, and I shared something in terms of what we were doing in terms of advocacy. And when you look at Haiti, everybody will tell you about Haiti is poor. But what they don't tell you is the debt that France tied the people of Haiti into over 200 years ago. And the crime the Haiti people committed was asking for their independence and liberating themselves. They were the first Black republic in the world. And as a result, they were chained because of their quest for freedom and for humanity.
It's very interesting that you're saying that. I could see the passion, and like what you say, if you're being an advocate and you're actually lecturing and you're supervising, you want to go to the root of the cause and actually find out how, firsthand, what has this thing done. Whatever you're teaching, you want to be a practicing of what you're teaching to actually get the fact right. And thank God that you
Absolutely.
have the opportunity to be able to do this. And I've observed the way every time you're carrying your suitcases, you're traveling every time, just search. 3 years ago, we were in Ghana. We went with Bishop T.D. Jakes, and we went to Archbishop Duncan Williams to take us to the slave trade, the gate of no return and all that. I tell you, I have all the videos and all the photos. About 30 people came from America, and just the two of us from Australia. And these
Yeah.
American people too, they want to see where their great forefathers and parents, where they pushed out in the water, and the little gate that they pushed them through and all that. And they were doing the year of return. They want to return. Some of them actually buying lands and properties in Ghana from there, wanting to stay. But one thing I want to say to Mimi is, and to everyone that is watching, I don't know about other people, I wept. I wept. I was demoralized. I was devastated. And then over time, I forgot. I tried to, not forgot, I tried to switch out of it and say, so what? What are we going to do from here? So I want to know, what can we really do to make a difference? We're looking at maybe going forward. Should we be going forward? Should we go back and we start remembering what happened to us and to our people that were in exile, so to say? And people say we should move forward. And this is a very hard question. I'm sure a lot of people also are in the same situation. What do we do? And again, that brings me to your United Nations. I watched all the videos and I saw the people, the delegates from Cuba, from Venezuela, all these places, and they were fighting for African. And they were saying how their descendants are African descendants. 39% of people from Cuba or so, heritage is from Africa or something like of that nature. And they saying, what do we do? But the first question I want to know is, United Nations and all these delegates, what is the purpose, Mimi? What is the
Okay.
purpose?
Thank you for that. You've touched on a few things, and I'm going to touch on them, then I'll come to that question in terms of purpose and moving forward. But just taking you back to the statement in you visiting Ghana, I think it is something that people, Africans, especially the diaspora, should make an effort to connect to the continent, but also they should make an effort to move beyond their countries of birth and actually understand the context of why Africa actually has what we call us, the diaspora, in the first place. Because we should be living on the continent, we should be developing the continent, we should be participating in building. However, because of that history, which is why it is so essential that we look back, because if we don't look back, we'll not be able to move forward. I was so honored to speak at the General Assembly, and the General Assembly had the representation of all UN member states, in addition to us, the delegates. And sharing your voice at such a level in the General Assembly really provided the opportunity, not just for the advocacy, but also to demonstrate and also to be in solidarity with the countries that are affected, and no Black person on the planet that is not affected in one way or the other by the history of colonialism, but also by colonization today. And one of the days, the last day of the forum was dedicated to Haiti. Why? Because they are where they are celebrating 200 years. But you cannot celebrate 200 years when you are entrapped in poverty, because the debt that was there, I
Absolutely.
think the figure was about 125 million, which back then 200 years ago, which is about 135 billion in today's money. The exact figures are on my LinkedIn page for people want to know. And these are factual things. But if people are unable, I just got
Yeah.
the housekeeping at my door.
She's got the housekeeping on her door, and she just want to let them in, and she'll be back.
Yeah.
She is. Yeah.
So my apologies. So when you, if you cannot look at that history and then understand why reparations are so essential, are important, then what are you moving forward with? People have to heal the trauma that has been caused, which is generational, but also in terms
Right.
of world building, right? Look at the history of wealth. Individuals barely build wealth. You build wealth as family, as communities. When all of that is destroyed, when all of that is stolen, when all of that is taken away, and this is where you have the slogan, you know, they stole us, they sold
They
us,
sell
hence the
us.
old.
Yeah.
All
They
right. So it
stole
is
us.
absolutely,
They sold us.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely essential that we look back in this history and we call for the reparations. Okay, I'm here in Nigeria. We know the history of a fertilizers that was burnt down literally because the British could not stand seeing this type of an empire in Africa a few hundred years ago. But not only did they burn it down, they actually stole a lot of artifacts, which are
Yeah.
still
In
currently
the
in
UK.
the British museums. Those
Yeah.
artifacts belong to Africa. They should be given back to us. That is our world. Then we look
Yeah.
at what is happening in a place like Burkina Faso.
Yeah.
There is evidence that Africa does not need aid from anybody around the globe. Africa does not need aid. If anything, when they say they've cut aid, I think I am happy with that, because we can and should be self-reliant. Yet, when you see any African leader who wants to become reliant, who is there for his people or their people, most of what happens, they bring them down as fast as possible, because the world depends on Africa for their development. The world depends on Africa. And it is your voice, it is my voice, it is our voices that is going to change that.
I heard you. I heard you. But the people that we're trying to talk to, are they listening? This our artifact that was stolen and was with the British Empire. We've been talking about it. People have been talking about it. Some people actually went with like a mass propaganda, went to the gallery to go and take this out of, of the where they on the cases where they were locked in, and they were not successful. I mean, the amount of noise that people have actually been making an email, and I know that they've been channeling a lot of correspondence for them to release our artifact, and they haven't released it. how, how far do we go? What can we do? Even simple as that, they're not giving us back. It's clearly that this is from the Benin city. It's clear that this is from the northern part of Nigeria and all these places that they took stuff from. How else do you want to fight these people to collect something that belongs to us? Just a simple exercise like that. Do
Okay,
United Nations, do they have the manpower? Do they have the capacity to be able to enact whatever they proposing?
okay, that's a great question. But what I will say is the unity of the African people is their only strength in terms of advocacy, in terms of reparation, in terms of returns. Remember, that we're talking about artifacts that have stolen from around the entire globe.
Yeah.
The British, the French, the Belgians, name it, the Spanish. So we're not, I was just giving an example
Yeah.
because I happen to be in that country at the moment. But
Yeah.
this is something, and when I was in the UN, one of the side events that I attended was actually organized specifically for the return of the Benin bronzes in the UN, and
Yeah.
you had the Nigerian High Commissioner and other people in that room as well, in terms of that advocacy. But it is a united voice across the globe, which is what the people of the Forum of African People is all about. Bringing that united voice from the recent migrants in the diaspora to those who went, whose ancestors were forcefully stolen and taken there as slaves. And having that united voice brings a lot of power. And we know that because of that united voice, now we have a place at the General Assembly or in the United Nations to advocate for this. And when we advocate, we have to advocate as a collective, right? The African Union has got the ECOSOC, and they have us as the seed region. So there are these structures. So if you don't belong to any of the structures, talk to me. I chair the African Science Research and Innovation Council, African Union Commission in Australia. We are in that space where building the infrastructure, bringing your voice, but you need to put yourself out there. If you sit in your comfort zone, nothing is going to happen. And if you just say, oh, we don't have to worry about it, literally you are supporting the enslavement of your own great grandchildren and the great grandchildren of your great grandchildren. Remember, women today, we vote not because anybody gave us the vote, because we fought for it. Others
Yeah.
before us did it, right? Nothing is given. We did not have, African countries did not have independence because somebody decided to say, oh, Africans have independence, or slavery ended because, or somebody just got up one day and said, oh, slavery should end. It's because people fought for that to come to an end. It is because people fought to ensure that Africans became free. But the economic enslavement through neo-colonialism, look at who is mining where, who owns the mines in the different countries in Africa. And we've seen the governments that are trying to say, hey, we're going to nationalize these resources. We want the indigenous people to benefit from these resources. Okay, Burkina Faso, the young leader has literally said education is free from kinder right through to university. Namibia has just followed suit, and there's a
I
lot that
know.
is happening. Follow that.
Mm.
African, you are not sharing what Traore is doing, please, then you are being complicit, but also you are sympathizing with colonizers.
So with the Burkina Faso, are you is United Nations supporting him in a way? Are the delegates talking to him, somebody who is doing it, how is done it to take it to other nations? Because some other African countries, they are probably scared, or some of them are probably signed a treaty with these nations that they can't get out of in donkey years. How about that? So, because they're not saying the truth to us, to the commoners, to let us know what treaty have they signed, what an agreement have they had with all these first world that tie us to them. So will you guys be working with a nation that is a country that is doing it currently and how they are doing it, and then sell it to other African countries that might need help in terms of support to be able to do
Yeah,
something drastic?
absolutely. You know, courage.
Yeah, courage.
And what we have seen in the young President Traore is
Yeah.
courage. And when you
Mm,
stand up to this, they're going to come after you. And we have seen what is going on. And in terms
mm,
of what the world is doing, I don't know if people in the studio or others know that there is going to be a big march around the world on the 30th of April. So that is in a few days' time. And that is in support of Captain Traore, in light of what they've recently, the game that they've recently been playing and trying to call him a dictator. We've heard this language
Oh,
before. We've seen how the playbook has been played before. We've heard of Gaddafi being called a dictator when he wanted to liberate Libya and when he liberated Libya. Uh, uh, um, um, and we are seeing and we are hearing the same playbook. And unfortunately,
oh,
they always use the face of a black person. And
to fight the
unfortunately,
macro.
they're using the face of a black man in America to call him a dictator. So the world is rallying and he's got support. And I think the last few days in Europe, there have been marches, but there is a global march on the 30th of April 2025, literally in support of what Troy is doing in liberating Africa, because should Burkina Faso fall, that is literally going to be a sword that is going to pierce the heart of Africans everywhere. You need to go there. And accusing him of using the resources to protect himself when clearly everybody can see where the money is going into
Yeah,
structure, building roads, into education. And of course, the head of state need to protect themselves. Which head of state doesn't get protection from their people?
everybody
Who
gets
doesn't
it.
protect themselves? But he doesn't have these big bank accounts anywhere. He's not hiding anything anywhere. He is using the resources of Burkina Faso for the people of Burkina Faso. And is that a crime?
No, that's not a crime.
Absolutely.
That's not a crime. I'm getting somewhere with this, and I'm getting clarity about it, because really I also want to clearly understand the process and the procedure, so that when we're advocating, we will know the right word to use and how to tell our people, because everybody is just doing their playing their own little games in their little closet. So but we need the larger majority of us to actually understand all these things that is going around the world and how we can contribute. We're not saying to fight, we're saying advocating. One of the guys on your LinkedIn was saying that even one of the delegates used the word that we should give the word that give Africa what Africa really deserve. And
Absolutely.
people are not giving Africa what they deserve. I was in Zanzibar also last year. I went to
I
this
went
thing. Oh my gosh, horrible, horrible. But one thing I want to say is, even in Zanzibar right now, in Tanzania, I was told, is Tanzania, right? I was told that
in person.
people are
Yes.
still enslaved in that country even now. They still enslave, that you have to serve some masters to work with them. They are the one that's got all the big corporations in the country, and the nationals don't have much. They're controlling them. They're still enslaving them in their country. I mean, they said these people are now, they've nationalized, but you see them, they are all colored. You are all, all over the places. But the people are still serving them like master. How can we start to walk from that area, from home now, before we even go further to you to
Yeah. Thank you for
yeah,
raising that. I think in addition to everything that is happening, one of the sad truths is human trafficking, but also modern day slavery that continues to occur around the world. And I was in Zanzibar in December last year, so that's a few months ago. I happened to visit one of the islands where the ships used to take off, but
yeah,
also they've got a town which is now like surrounded on the island and is used as a market. But what caught my attention was the similarities between the infrastructure that they had in Zanzibar, Tanzania, the similar infrastructure that they had on Gorée Island in Senegal, but also the similar infrastructure that they had in Ghana, but other places. And I have visited all those places. And it gives you the chill, but it tells you that this was something that was designed. It was not accidental. It was structured, right, to continue to enslave people. But the sad truth today is that while the physical thoughts of slavery seem to have dissipated. The reality is that we continue to have modern day slavery around the world. But just look within Africa, for example, at the airports. How many young women do you see entering those planes to be taken, most often than not, to the Middle East and other parts of the world to serve as servants with no voices, right? They live.
Sorry about that.
They live. Yeah, they live as innocent young people anticipating the future, right? And they come back as broken humans most often than not. In terms of the example you gave in Zanzibar, I didn't go into that part and that aspect of it specifically, but my observation traveling through Africa, being in Kenya, being in other parts of the
Yeah.
continent, is that in some of the East African countries that had strong histories of colonialism or colonization, after the British left, some of the infrastructure was then left and now controlled primarily by Asian people. And I'm not going to name groups, but it is obvious then the indigenous people there are servants, the locals. And
Yeah.
being in Tanzania in the resorts, that was quite obvious to me, right? Being in Kenya, that was quite obvious to me, who stands behind the counter in the shops and who is on the floor moving around with the clients, holding the baskets and serving, but
Yeah.
where you hand the money over. So for me, that is still enslavement. It is a form of a
Mhm.
colonization. It's evident that stares us off, but yet people say little about it. And it is up to our leaders, right, to remove these structures, because these structures did not occur in the last 20, 50 years. These structures were designed 100 to 300 years ago. So yes, it is going to take time, but we must keep working at it. And the only way we're going to be successful is if all of us use our collective power to contribute. Don't think that your voice is small. Whatever you do in your little corner in terms of advocacy is going to go a long way. But I will advocate and say to everybody who is online to say, hey, join the Forum for the People of African Descent, join ASRI, join the respective networks that are recognized, and also with people that are going to open those doors so that you can sit around those tables, right, to make a contribution. But you've got a voice. Speak to your own families back home.
Fantastic. This is good. And like I asked initially, this forum, do they have to be doctors? Do they have to be professor? What sort of people do you really need to be part of this movement? Somebody was saying to me before that one of the criteria for people to be part of United Nations, for example, that you have to be a volunteer. You have to be somebody that is served the community, that is in a different capacity in the community before you are actually sign up to be part of the United Nations. How do people get asked, for example? What do people like us say to people to encourage them to be part of this movement? What are
Okay,
their
great.
criteria?
I guess I'm going to not talk about how people become a member of the United Nations, but I'm going to talk about being
As
participant with participating for the people of African in the Forum for the People of African Descent, and how you can become a participant. Okay,
right.
there's a working group, and then within we've got civil society, you've got NGOs, and you've got respective platforms. But most often than not, people need to see a track record, to be invited. Me being even attending the forum at the UN, right? There is a process that you go through, but even after you've gone through that process, there's also the screening process in order to end, because security also matters, but also they have to think about who is that person, what is their track record in what
Mm-hmm.
area, etc. Because we need to also be careful that people don't infiltrate the spaces who are
Right.
not for us, who are not
Yeah.
there to support the movement, who are not there to support the emancipation of the Black person. Not because the Black person needs anything from outsiders, but we recognize that unless we have this collective voice, we are going to continuously be changed. Look at the African American people. If you go back to their history, people tell you, oh, they allowed their this, but you have to take a step back and say, where are these people really coming from? Every time the African American ancestors tried to liberate themselves, tried to build wealth, it was down, it was destroyed, or some other policy was put in place to ensure that that was destroyed, right? And most of the people who grew up on the continent, they had opportunities to go to school despite the other challenges, but it was not as active. You do not have those active agents there trying to take everything away from you on a daily basis. And we see it. Look at the prisons in the US. It's filled by Black people. Why? Is it because Black people commit the most crimes? Absolutely not. Crime is committed by everybody, right? There's no
Yeah.
race that is prone to crime. There is no race, but it is all about the structures that have been put in place. And we need to talk about a place like Australia, where it is becoming a problem. I don't know if people have had the opportunity to visit any of our jails. And I say that as somebody who was invited into one of the maximum security prisons in Victoria. And it broke my heart to see what was going on. So there is a problem, and these things are subtle. And we need to advocate. We need to put our voices in policy. We need to be out there. You don't need to be arrogant. You
Yeah.
don't need to be arrogant. However, you cannot also be silent. Silence is complicity.
Yeah, it's consent. Well, talk about criminal. And only last week I had a terrible incident that this guy came and stole huge amount of product from my store. And next week I'm going to show the video to the world to see. It's devastating, and they're not blacks. I've been to the police station. I mean, they've been to my shop 4 times, four, 3 times during the day. One time I was there myself. The other times I wasn't there. And this time, last Wednesday, they came again. So it's not just crime. I've seen them, quite a lot of them. In our area, it's actually really bad how the African kids are being shot on the street, being killed in daylight. And we're still marching on to see what penalty they're going to give to these people, because they need to be put to book, brought to book for the atrocity that they're committing. You're right. It's not just the black people that is committing this, but it's looking like as if they are the only one that is getting punished, and we can't be
Yes,
quiet. I understand that we can't be quiet. Whoever has done anything bad, let us put everybody. Let's bring them back to book, not just one. One color or one part of the world. Footscray last week, there was a bad thing in my area that another guy was shot and killed, and there was another mass parade because this guy was shot. It was somebody that is homeless, is on the street. He didn't do anything. Apparently, they killed him. So that's been there. We know. I understand what you're saying. We can't be quiet, and we don't need to be arrogant as well. But I believe that our people need to understand this concept. If it doesn't happen to you, doesn't mean it won't happen to somebody that is close to you tomorrow. So we can't just be quiet. Let us come back together and speak civilly, to the authority or to the channel that we need to speak with. I agree 100% with you. So you've given us the idea to join the forum for African people of African descent. It's very easy. You have to be part of an NGO. You have to have something doing. You have to have a good track record in the community. But and then they need to be assessed and to be proven fit. Is it a long process, Mimi? Because we shouldn't make this a long process so that it doesn't discourage people as well that want to.
no, when I say the process in terms of being in certain spaces, because when you look at within countries, for example, these are huge movements, and in a country, for example, they may only select 4 or 5 people, but then there's a platform of a few hundred people, a few thousand people, right, or even more. So there is normally that process in order to identify key people that should sit in some of this platform, because sitting at the General Assembly, for example, you want to ensure that the messaging is going to be right, it is going to be targeted at the right audience, but also that the person who is sitting on those in that platform is able to be somebody that others can identify with, but also that they can see themselves in as well. So I'm more than happy for us to have some sort of forum outside of the studio, just to, educate people, because we are nearing the second, we've just at the beginning of the second decade, because we had the first decade that in 2024 of the African people, which sadly most people did not know about it. And then now this is the beginning of the second decade that the UN has actually allocated for the people of African descent. So this is the beginning of the second decade. And I think one of the key things that we did was to advocate that we have the second decade in order to have a collective platform to continue the work that was commenced in the first decade for the people of African descent. So I'm calling on everybody, I'm reaching out to everybody to do that. But also, just now wearing my hat as an educator, I'm wearing the professor hat right now to say, hey, there are opportunities for you to do some research in these areas. If these are areas that you're passionate about and you are studying, you are doing a master's, you're doing or you anticipate doing a PhD, speak to me, because we could come up with a topic that can really be favorable to you, but also to others in terms of how you can make a contribution and evaluate some of this work, etc. So have a conversation with me, have a conversation with others.
We will have a conversation with you, and I think the ideal thing is actually to have a forum where we can sit around the table and you can actually explain this to a large number of us as well, and even the research that you want us to do, some of us might be able to do the research. You can see that I did not go on a break, because this is something that I want to understand, and I just don't want to be an accomplice. I really want to be a part of the one that is doing what I believe. But I want to know that the channel we're going through and the process is going to translate to something, that we're going to be able to achieve something at the end of the day. We're not just going to be making noise and be writing letter that doesn't actualize. But that's why I didn't have any break. But next time when we come, Mimi, I want to talk about our leaders in Africa. Because some of our leaders, they are enslaving us as well, more than what the first world is doing. So I think we need to start, I believe we need to start from home. We need to find a way to do that. We're running out of time, unfortunately, but I want it to be an individual talk as well when it comes to our leadership in Africa. It's appalling. It's disgraceful. And that is why all of us are where we are right now. But I will leave it to next week when we come here. There's more that I want to talk about, especially the way we treat ourselves. And there's something that the African descent all over, even Haiti, there's a particular pattern of permanent issues that we have that we need to address ourselves. Like you said before, they're using a black man face to attack the Burkina Faso president, because they know they teasing us against each other. When are we going to be wise enough to know that enough is enough? We're not going to be part of this and accepting this atrocity anymore. So I think next week is when we're going to be able to talk about that. If
just on that note, yeah, I think that would be fantastic. But though I don't want to, it's really important that we understand that there are the governance, but also who are the people who are holding these leaders to ransom. So a lot of them are
Well,
being held to ransom. But
okay.
then I just wanted to say something about Burkina Faso. I met a young man while I was in at the UN, and he was from Burkina Faso. And this is what he said, and this is why leadership is so important. I just happened to sit on the same table during the lunch break, and he was there with an older person as well. Then the three of us sat down, and then I was curious, where do you come from, etc. And he's studying. And as we got into the conversation, he said to me, 3 years ago, he never wanted anybody to know where he came from. But now he can stand on top of any hill and shout that he's from Burkina Faso because he's so proud of what their leader is doing, as in Captain Ibrahim Traore is doing over there. So leadership matters. And if we have our leaders do behave and do the right things on the continent, every Black person around the world will be respected. Let's work with them, let's support them, let's understand their perspective as well, but let's collaborate and work with the leadership and let them understand why it is so important and why good leadership is essential. Thank you so
I think
much.
I believe that's where we need to go. We need to go directly to our leaders and let them realize the anomalies that they're doing. We can see it is clear. Whether they're holding them into ransom, what can we do to deliver them from this second time slavery? But next week, we're going to come back and talk more about our leaders and about our people. I don't want to close my eyes from our people and our behavior, whatever it is that is enslaving us. We'll talk about it next week. And I think on that note, enjoy Benin. I'm in Gold Coast currently, and we shall meet again in Melbourne very shortly. I'm in Australia. Thank you
Absolutely,
so much for your
absolutely.
heart. Thank you so much for this thing it's a movement that you started. If you don't know, it's a movement because we want to do something.
Thank you.
It is true. We want to do something, but we just don't know what to do. Like you said, we don't want to be aggressive or arrogant about it. We want to do it the right way. And so it's good that you're starting this movement, really, Professor Mimi. I appreciate you. We heard you,
Thank you
and
so
we'll
much.
see you again next week. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for supporting and for what you are doing as well. Thank you so much.
That's okay. On that
Thanks,
note, everybody,
everybody. Yes,
see you next week.
thank
We
you.
appreciate you. Bye bye for now.